I have here in this rather hefty box 100 random Super Nintendo games from Japan. It's a mystery box, it's a surprise, I have no idea what I'm getting, it's a job lot. I say Super Nintendo, I of course should say Super Famicom, that's how the system was known in Japan, and that's what these are, 100 random, loose, unboxed Super Famicom games all the way from Japan. Did I get a good deal? Did I get my money's worth? Was it worthwhile? Well, let's find out. So this box cost me a little bit less than £200, which at the present time is a little bit over $200 and not much different from €200 either. So £2, $2, €2, that's approximately what each of these games cost me. They were listed as junk, untested, which does sound a bit harsh, but that's pretty common in Japanese eBay listings. It means they are sold as is with no returns. What this actually means in practice, just what condition they're going to be in, well, I don't know, but let's take a look in the box and we might get a clue. And okay, this doesn't look too bad so far. In fact, it looks quite promising. Right away, I can see at least one thing that I am interested in. So let's start to get these out of the box and go through them, but just before I do that, here is a word from today's sponsor, Yahaha. So what is Yahaha? Well, it's a user-generated content platform for 3D multiplayer interactive experiences. You can use all the components and assets in Yahaha Studio to make your own dream games without any coding experience or server knowledge. I think probably the best thing to do is to give you a quick demo of the type of things you can do in the Yahaha Studio. Let's start with selecting the hide and seek gameplay template from the create section. Once that is loaded and we're in the map, then it's time to go to the asset library and find the behavior player transformation component card. I've already added this because this isn't quite my first time with this, but if you're doing this yourself for the first time, you just need to click on it and download it. Then we need to pick a random 3D model. This zombie guy will do. Add him to my assets, and then view on the map. And I can place him anywhere I like. There will do for now, near the player spawn point. Then I can add the behavior player transformation component card to the zombie asset in the gameplay setup menu on the right. Then hit the play button in the top right corner and straight away I'm in the game. And when my avatar touches the zombie, that's what I turn into. Not massively inconspicuous for a hide and seek game, but anyway. That's just how easy it is to get in there and start making stuff. There's absolutely loads of stuff you can do with this, I've only scratched the surface. Yahaha hosts regular live sessions for the community to help creators enhance their metaverse building skills. You can follow them on Twitch and YouTube to see more. So why not give it a go? Click the link below or scan this QR code to check out Yahaha and start making your dream games for free. So thank you Yahaha, these sponsorships really do make all the difference when it comes to allowing me to make videos like this. So thank you very much. Let's get on to taking a look at what I've got in this box. I'm going to show you the edited version of this. I'm not going to go through every game in this video. This is going to be cut down, but I will show you the best stuff and give you a flavour of what I've got, keeping an eye out for stuff that's interesting and maybe stuff that's worth a bit more than the £2 that each of these games cost me. So let's start, and first out of the box, that thing that caught my eye right away, it's a Super Game Boy. Yeah, of course, not a game at all, but a peripheral, an add-on. It lets you play Game Boy games on the Super NES, and it seems to be in okay condition, and if it works, well, that's definitely a win that's worth more than 2 of your local unit of currency. Not the most desirable version, the Super Game Boy 2 is apparently a bit better, but still, that's not bad. And next up we've got Super Fire Pro Wrestling, a decent game as I recall. Not sure how text heavy it is, this is of course the Japanese version, but it's going to be worth a try. And this is Koshien 4, a generic baseball game by the looks of things. Not something I'm familiar with, but probably something I'm going to be seeing quite a lot of, and yeah, you know, not a type of game I'm massively enthusiastic about. But what on earth is this? A mystery cart with no label. What could this be? A cursed game that makes ghosts with no feet come out of the TV? Possibly. Or maybe it's Rendering Ranger R2. That's worth quite a bit. But really, anything besides a generic sports game would be a turn up. Next, we've got Romancing Saga 2. Not my first choice of Squaresoft RPGs. In fact, I don't think I've played any of the Romancing Saga games, but there is a fan translation patch of this. But something a bit more accessible now is Super Puyo Puyo, the classic block falling puzzle game from developers Compile, and something tells me I'm probably not saying that right. I don't think I've ever played this version of it, but it should be fun and it's probably fairly easy to get into without much Japanese knowledge. And the next thing I've grabbed is Super Formation Soccer, known as just Super Soccer in the West. I think that's the same game, and I'd be sort of tempted to throw this in the, well, I'm not interested pile, but I do have a feeling this might be a cut above, so it might be worth a go. But this definitely is something that's going in my keeps pile. It's got the SNK logo on it, and that's enough by itself. Yeah, I think it's Guru Densetsu Special, or Fatal Fury Special as it's called in the West. Probably not the best version of this game, but still a fairly good addition to my collection. And here we go with what has to be the Super NES's least rare game, of course, Super Mario World. It came as a pack-in for a long time, but it's still good to see, and still one of the best Super NES Super Famicom games there ever was. I don't own a Japanese copy of this, but now I do. Probably not massively valuable, but I bet it still gets a higher price on eBay than a lot of much more rare games, just because everyone wants a copy. And this here looks like the original Fatal Fury, i.e. Fatal Fury 1, another nice fighting game, not as good as the Neo Geo original, I'm sure, but I still think this is a fairly good conversion, not a bad find, another one maybe worth a little more than £2. That's maybe not something you could say for Prime Goal 2 though, on the other hand, another fairly generic sports game. And this, well, this is a weird one. JRA-PAT Wide Tayuban is what I think this is called. Not actually a game, but an online horse racing betting terminal. The horseshoe is a bit of a clue. Completely useless today, I'm sure, even if you do have the required Super Famicom modem to go with it. The betting service must be long defunct. The charcoal grey cartridge is fairly unusual though, because hardly any Super NES games, Super Famicom games, had anything but the standard light grey cartridge shell. It's probably quite rare though, that doesn't mean it's worth anything of course, because no one cares about this, do they? There might be something interesting you could do with this cartridge, but I can't think what right now. Final Fight though, well, that is a touch more exciting, though this isn't the best version of the game by a long way. It is definitely more fun than a defunct betting terminal, though that's not something you could say about the ZX Spectrum version. And also Donkey Kong Country 2, the best of the three Donkey Kong Country games, though I think they were all pretty amazing. If it works, this is definitely a good find. It is in pretty rough shape though. Most of these carts haven't been too bad, but this one does look like it's had a hard life. In better shape though is Samurai Spirits, aka Samurai Showdown in the West, another one from SNK, and again not the best version of this game, but still a pretty good find I would say. We've also got Pack in Time, the Pac-Man based platformer. I think I haven't played this, so I'll look forward to giving it a go. And yet another fighting game, we're doing well for those. Street Fighter 2 Turbo, not remotely rare I'm quite sure, but I don't own it for the Super NES, so that is quite nice. And Battle Grand Prix, I don't know anything about this, other than the fact that it's from Naxat Soft, who published Summer Carnival 92 Rekka on the NES, an amazing game, and a load of good stuff on the PC Engine too. No idea what this is like, but I'm going to put it in the interesting pile. Which is also where I would put in Final Fight 2. Yes, it's the Super NES exclusive sequel that was way better than the Super NES version of the original. Shame it's not in such brilliant shape, but let's hope it works. And also Super Wagon Land, I think that's what it is. Looks like this cost someone 800 yen, but not me. And Dragon Quest V from Enix, another one that was not released in the West until much later, and I don't think an official Super NES version of this has ever seen the light of day, but I do think there is a fairly good fan translation of this though available. And that absolutely goes double for Bahamut Lagoon, the Squaresoft Tactics RPG. This is really good. I was sort of hoping maybe I could find this, but I wasn't holding out that much hope. But here it is. This has never had a Western release at all, ever, in any form, but there are fan translation patches for this, at least 2 different versions, one pretty recent as I recall. This is not a rare game really, it's definitely not worth all that much, but it is really nice to find it here if it works. Not quite so excited about Super Kiba 2. I think this might be horse racing related. Yeah, that nose is a bit of a giveaway. And another game I'm really excited to see, it's Chrono Trigger, a total classic, one of the best RPGs of its era, absolutely no doubt about that. The English version of this, whether American NTSC or European PAL, is worth £200 all day just for a loose cartridge, even if it is in rough shape like this one, if it's authentic, but the Japanese version, well, not so much. Even on a good day, it's probably worth less than a tenth of that, but hey, it's not bad to have in the collection. Next, we've got 2 copies of Space Invaders, the original game. I have a feeling this might just be a straight port of Space Invaders. I think the clue is in the name, but at least one of these should work. And even more good news. Final Fantasy VI, very nice. Again, the Japanese version of this, of course, not worth so much as the English version, but still it's good to have another one that I maybe hoped for. And also Final Fantasy V. This version of the game never saw a release in English, though later ports of it were. There is of course a fan translation of this too. And just to round it off, it's Larry Nixon's Super Bass Fishing. I'm sure a classic of the genre. He doesn't look or sound particularly Japanese, must be an international bass superstar. And I can guarantee there will be people in the comments telling me it's not bass, it's bass, you moron. Yeah, bass fishing, that's what this is. We've also got 2 Ranma Half games. Both I think are fighting games, which we'll add to the pile. And even more RPG goodness. It's Secret of Mana, also known as Seiken Densetsu 2 in Japan, or maybe Seiken Densetsu Ni, or whatever it is. Anyway, numbering confusion did make me think that this was Secret of Mana 2 at first, but it's not. It's the second in the series, but the first to be released in the West as just Secret of Mana. Nice to see a copy of this though. In fact, there were 2 copies in this box, and one of them is bound to work, I'm sure. Though nearly everything in this box has been in pretty decent shape, I'm fairly certain most of this stuff is going to work. There's probably very little literal junk in here. And for the finale, one more Cart of Mystery. No idea what this is, and my very meagre Japanese skills aren't enough to make any sense of what's written on here. Does look vaguely familiar somehow. I think I might recognise that character, but I can't place whoever it is. I'm sure some of you watching this will recognise this game right away, but let's hope this works and I can find out for myself. So that was the edited version of what I got. Missed out were a load of generic sports games and lots of horse racing stuff. I had no idea there were so many Super Famicom horse racing games, but you have seen most of the good stuff. So assembled here is the cream of the crop, so to speak, a nice selection, maybe 40 odd games that I think are worthwhile, plus one Super Game Boy. A really good RPG selection, a load of Squaresoft stuff. I did want some RPGs because I want to try my hand at doing some English conversions. If you have the right equipment and the know-how, you can Replace the original ROM chips off the cartridges with patched versions programmed onto programmable EPROM chips, giving you a semi-legit English version of a game on an original cart. The best candidates for this have to be Bahamut Lagoon, Final Fantasy V and Dragon Quest V, because there's just no legit English versions of these on the Super NES at all, especially Bahamut Lagoon, which never saw a re-release in English on any platform. But also Secret of Mana, Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI as well. They do have official English versions, but they are pretty expensive, so doing an English conversion is sort of the poor man's version of these games. There's also a load of fighting games. That was something I wasn't expecting so many of. A good selection, some of the best ones on the system, which I'm pleased about, and a whole load of random other games too. Nothing massively rare, of course, but some surprises and some good stuff. So far, this looks good. Let's get on to testing this stuff and see if any of it works. So I'm set up here with my Super Famicom and a load of cleaning stuff and tools on hand. I'm going to be using this converter here to play games with, which may seem a bit pointless. This is for playing import games, and all of these are Japanese games, and this is a Japanese Super Famicom console. But the cart slot on this is much more accessible. When it gets gunked up with crap from old cartridges, it's much easier to clean. And yes, I'm using Yoshi's Island as the lockout chip donor cart, and no, it didn't come in this box. So let's get going with, well, it has to be, doesn't it, the cart of mystery. What is it? And right away it springs into life. Sunsoft, that's a good sign. And it turns out to be a game called Hebereke's Poppoon, a Puyo Puyo-esque puzzle game, which I've never heard of but seems quite nice. So not something super rare and valuable that's gonna pay for a week in Tenerife, but then again, not some cursed relic from the depths of the 90s either, so I think I'll call that a win. And the other cart of mystery? It's Crayon Shin-chan, yes, based on the long-running manga. It might be a good game, I've no idea. It looks very kiddie, but I think the manga was a bit more adult-oriented from what I can gather, kind of works on two levels type of stuff. But that's another mystery solved, and yes, for anyone complaining about the aspect ratio here, I'm not a heathen. I know this is supposed to be 4:3, not 16:9, but this TV keeps defaulting to widescreen mode with RGB input like this is, and I can't be bothered to keep changing it back every time. Next up, it's the Super Game Boy. This took a bit of cleaning, but it works fine after a bit of elbow grease. That is a relief. Obviously way more complicated than most other cartridges. It's basically got a whole Game Boy without the screen in there, so there's way more to go wrong, but this seems fine. I've got another one of these and it is a bit flaky. This one works better, so that's grand. Let's try Secret of Mana next. And that works great, fires up on the first turn of the key. And so does the other copy too. What about Bahamut Lagoon? Same deal, works right away. And let's watch the amazing intro. We can even treat ourselves to the correct aspect ratio too. And it's good to know that so much of this stuff works straight out of the box. It makes me think that this lot was actually literally untested by the seller, rather than it being the usual eBay euphemism for this stuff is completely knackered but I want to try and get a bit more money for it. Let's hope that carries over to Chrono Trigger 2. Now, I did give the pins a quick wipe just to make sure, but this also works first try too. Very nice. The car isn't in amazing cosmetic condition, but the contacts on the connector do seem to be fine. And yeah, somebody has had their money's worth out of this. 2 saves very close to the end. Yeah, there is plenty of other stuff for me to have a go on as well. I've been having a fine old time with all of this. I still haven't tested the whole box, but near enough everything I have tested has worked without much issue. But I probably shouldn't be too surprised. Cartridges do tend to be pretty reliable, don't they? As long as they're not physically broken or heavily corroded, they usually spring back to life without too much trouble. So here it is laid out, the full collection of games that I've got, and yeah, there is loads of stuff that I haven't talked about in this video. If you spot anything really good in here that I haven't mentioned, well, do let me know in the comments. So yeah, in amongst the good stuff is lots and lots of generic sports games of various kinds, and I've nothing against a well done sports sim, but anyone who collects games for any platform will tell you that these are the ones that turn up time and time again. There's always a flood of them. And when you add in the language barrier that you've got with these games, well, they're just not that exciting. Still though, as an enthusiast, I have got a load of fun stuff here to mess around with, and I've got at least one YouTube video out of it. Did I get my money's worth out of this box? Was it a good buy? Well, purely on a fun level, it totally was, but actually it wasn't such bad value on a monetary level either. There's nothing in here worth a fortune, of course. Anything even remotely sought after is never going to be in one of these random lots. It will be sold separately. But still, it's not bad value, and I'm not going to be doing this, but if you had an eBay store and were willing to clean all these up and make sure they were working and list them all, well, you might make a modest profit. There might be 20 or 30 games in here that are worth £5 each, stuff like Space Invaders, Super Mario World, Final Fight. And there might be another 5 or 10 that are closer to £10. A lot of the RPGs and fighting games do get a bit more money, plus that's Super Game Boy. That's a pretty conservative estimate, but that would take you up to £200 of value maybe to cover the cost of the box. And there might be stuff in here that is worth a bit more, but also a load of stuff that just isn't going to be in high demand to anyone. But I would say any genuine Super Famicom game is probably worth something to someone, even if it's just as a donor cart for a reproduction or homebrew game. So you wouldn't make a fortune, but over time you could probably make some money out of reselling lots like this if you put the work into it, and by the looks of things on eBay there are plenty of people doing just that, and good luck to them. Overall, I am pretty happy with what I've got. Realistically, this is about as good as I could hope for out of a lot like this, and if you're tempted yourself, there are absolutely loads and loads of these lots on eBay. Not just for the Super NES, but for Game Boy, N64, tons of consoles and in tons of sizes too. You can buy 20, 50, whatever from loads of sellers, many direct from Japan like this. I had zero hassle getting this shipped to the UK too, and whilst I can't guarantee that you'll get anything like what I got, you probably will have a lot of fun opening it up if you do buy a box like this. So whilst a lot of mystery boxes are, if not an outright scam, then well maybe have exaggerated value, this one wasn't. So not bad at all in the end, and thank you as always to my wonderful patrons. This month they get a special bonus video of the unedited footage of me going through every game in this box and probably misidentifying most of them. If you would like to join them and see this video, that would be great. There's a link in the description. So I will sign off and say thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.